challenge Maduro's legitimacy. The U.S. is attempting to funnel Venezuela's government assets to Guaido in order to cement his claim to Venezuela's presidency.
Sanctions is one, an important one. What other options does President Trump have when it comes to Venezuela? What could he do? Better yet, what should he do? I spoke with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies to get some perspective on this. Emanuele, what are the U.S.'s options or non-existent options in Venezuela right now as you see them?
The U.S. has a national, a clear, vital interest in making sure that the humanitarian and political catastrophe that Venezuela has turned into, turns into a positive direction, whereby there is a peaceful and orderly transition back to democracy. And I think that, therefore, the best option for the United States is to continue doing what it has done until now, namely, use non-military coercive economic power through sanctions to put pressure on the highest echelons of the Venezuelan regime and support the peaceful transition to democracy as envisaged by the opposition through the constitutional process that has appointed Juan Guaido as the interim president.
How united is Latin America right now around the idea of replacing Maduro?
Well, I think that, with the exceptions that one could predict of Mexico, Nicaragua, Cuba, and some of the Caribbean islands that for economic reasons have very much tied themselves to the Bolivarian ideology over the past few years, you have a fairly broad consensus, whether it's Brazil with a new president, but also the Southern Cone, Chile, Argentina, Paraguay, even Ecuador, that ideologically used to be much more aligned to the Bolivarian Revolution until recently. I think that what you see is a consensus that Venezuela has become a threat to all of these countries, and for understandable reasons. I mean, the refugee crisis that the Venezuelan disaster has caused in Latin America is putting an enormous amount of pressure on all of these countries. So I think there is a fairly broad consensus that the best way out would be a transition where Maduro and his people step down and let democracy return.
What, if any, role do you think the Catholic Church could play in this? We know Latin America is heavily Catholic. We know that the Pope, hailing from Argentina, spoke out about this just yesterday, saying he's terrified of what the outcome could be. Do you think the Holy Father, the Roman Catholic Church, could do anything?
The Church played an incredibly constructive, positive, important role to help bring the end of the Cold War. And it was not by announcing that it wouldn't take sides that the Church helped the end of the Cold War in a peaceful way. So I think it would be beneficial if the Vatican, and that is not necessarily the same for the local National Conference of Bishops in Venezuela, but the Vatican probably should be a little more forceful in its willingness to support the protests and their ambitions and aspirations, provided that this continues to be a peaceful process. That is exactly the kind of thing that the Catholic Church should be backing.
Peace. Emanuele brought that up many, many times, and that's what you hear from people who are living there now, people who have fled the country, just wanting to have a future in their nation. The top people to watch at this point are those surrounding Maduro, maybe not himself. You want to watch his top military aides.